8 Forgotten Foods. From an Appalachian coal miner's lunch pail. This is the story of 8 foods that rode 2,000 feet underground in a metal bucket every single day. Foods built specifically to survive coal dust, long hours, and the very real possibility that a miner wouldn't make it back out. Before we get to the food itself, it's worth understanding the bucket that carried it, because the bucket shaped almost everything that went inside. The bucket itself. Coal miners called it a lunch bucket, a dinner bucket, or sometimes just a snap can, and its design wasn't random. The classic version split into 2 parts, a bottom compartment that held liquid, usually tea, coffee, or water, and an upper section that held the actual food, sandwiches, bread, sometimes a piece of fruit or cake. That layout let a miner carry both his meal and his drink in a single container tough enough to survive a full shift underground. Early miners made do with whatever was on hand, cloth bags or repurposed syrup cans, before heavy-duty tin buckets became standard sometime in the late 19th century. The tin itself created a problem though, since it dented and crushed easily in the cramped, physically brutal conditions of an underground shift. According to Sudbury Mining Solutions Journal, it was actually a miner who solved that problem, inventing the aluminum lunch pail after crushing one too many tin ones. Later came the thermos, which meant a hot drink could stay hot and a cold drink could stay cold for the entire length of a workday, a small comfort that mattered enormously when nothing else about the job was comfortable. With the bucket itself established, let's get into what miners actually put inside it. Food. 1. Bread and cured meat by way of heritage. What went into a coal miner's bucket often depended less on personal taste and more on where his family had come from. German miners packed pork. Irish miners favored simple white bread. Italian miners, many of whom emigrated from Calabria specifically to work the coal fields of north-central West Virginia, brought cured meats and fresh-baked bread, often just a piece of salami tucked between 2 slices, eaten cold, deep underground. These weren't just convenient lunches, they doubled as a daily thread back to home, a small reminder of heritage carried into a job that otherwise had nothing familiar about it. Food. 2. The pepperoni roll. That Italian tradition of bread and cured meat eventually evolved into something new entirely. Sometime in the 1920s, the wives of Italian coal miners in West Virginia began baking cured pepperoni directly into soft bread dough, creating a single, self-contained roll that solved a very practical problem. The cured meat inside did not spoil even after hours underground with no refrigeration in sight. West Virginia University Press has since published research into the dish's exact origins, credited to a specific bakery in the state, and the pepperoni roll has since become what many West Virginians simply call the unofficial food of the state, showing up at football tailgates and school cafeterias generations after the mines that created it first opened. Money was tight in most mining families, and pinto beans, already a staple on the stove at home, sometimes made their way directly into the lunch bucket as well, spooned cold between 2 slices of plain white bread. It sounds unusual by modern standards, but it fit the same logic as everything else in this list. Beans, cornmeal, potatoes, and cabbage sat at the cheap end of the food budget, and a family with a miner working underground for low wages built meals, lunch bucket included, entirely around what was actually affordable. Food. 4. Soup beans and cornbread. After the shift. The lunch bucket only covered the workday itself, and the meal a miner came home to told its own story. Families with a father or brother in the mines often kept a pot of pinto beans simmering on the stove multiple times a week, served the same way soup beans always were, alongside cornbread. One woman recalling her own coal mining family put it plainly: they ate a lot of beans, a lot of cornbread, and rounded it out with coleslaw and fried potatoes, a filling meal built from ingredients that simply cost less than almost anything else available. Food 5. Coleslaw and fried potatoes. These two dishes rarely got much individual attention, but together they filled out a coal mining family's table night after night. Cabbage and potatoes both stored well, both stretched a small grocery budget further than meat ever could, and both showed up so consistently that they became, in the words of one coal mining daughter, simply what a filling and cheap meal looked like in a mining household. Food. 6. The coal dust cake, saved for the children. Not everything about the lunch bucket was strictly practical. In the coal patches of Pennsylvania, a small, specific tradition took root around whatever food a miner brought back out of the mine still uneaten. Miners' children, according to one historical account, believed that food carried underground picked up an interesting taste from the mine itself, so fathers began deliberately saving a bit of bread or cake to bring home, often still marked with coal dust from his own fingers. It's a small detail, but it captures something the rest of this list doesn't quite reach. Food as a small daily gift from a father to his children, carried home from one of the most dangerous jobs in the country. Miners' wives frequently packed more food than a single lunch break actually required, and that extra portion wasn't an accident or an oversight. According to oral histories collected by West Virginia Public Broadcasting, families packed the extra food specifically in case something went wrong underground, an accident, a delay, a cave-in, anything that might strand a miner longer than expected. When a miner made it home safely with that untouched extra food still in the bucket, it often went straight to his children, turning a safety measure into a small, quiet celebration disguised as leftovers. Food. 8. Coffee, tea, or water. From the bottom of the bucket. We end where we started, with the bucket's lower compartment. Whatever a family could afford filled that bottom section. Coffee for some households, tea for others, plain water for families who could spare neither. It sounds like the simplest item on this entire list, and it was, but it mattered enormously to a man working a 10-hour shift in the dark. It was the one thing in the entire bucket that wasn't really about nutrition. It was about getting through the day. 8 foods, and every one of them tells you something about the specific conditions coal mining forced onto a family's kitchen table. This wasn't poverty cooking in the abstract sense we've covered in earlier videos on this channel. It was food engineered around a 10-hour shift 2,000 feet underground, around the very real risk that the man carrying it might not walk back out, and around whatever a particular family's heritage, whether German, Irish, or Italian, had carried into the coal fields with them. The pepperoni roll outlived the mines that created it and became a genuine piece of West Virginia identity. The extra portion, packed just in case, turned a safety precaution into an act of quiet love. Even something as small as coal dust on a piece of saved cake became, for the children who remembered it, a taste tied directly to their father coming home. These 8 foods were never just about hunger. They were about labor, risk, and the families waiting at the top of the shaft for that bucket to come back up, hopefully still half full. That's our list of 8 forgotten foods from an Appalachian coal miner's lunch pail. If someone in your family carried a bucket like this underground, tell us what was inside it in the comments below.